Good evening, and welcome to The Way Out Show. I'm your host, Dane McCarthy, broadcasting to you from FEMA Region 5, deep in the heart of the United States of Amnesia. Today is June 9th, 2016, and I have a special treat for those who are open to the possibility that Donald Trump may not be crazy and that he may have something important to offer to the United States of America and particularly to the people of the United States of America. I have a compilation of interview clips and part of his speech that he gave to announce that he was running as a candidate for the presidency. And it's about 27 minutes long, just a little bit under 27 minutes long. And it starts, as I said, in the 80s. He's a very much younger man, very young man, and this will prove that he's not crazy, he's not stupid, that he's not, I don't think it'll prove that he's not racist, but he doesn't do anything that, he comes off as a very rational person. And people keep asking him, what's almost funny about it, is that people keep asking him, will you run for president? This is way back when he first started, when he was a young man. And they saw something in him, and he would always say, well, I think someone should who could really do something for this country and turn this country around, but I don't want to do it. I don't want to be the one that does it. And you can almost see the gradual realization that that person that he hopes will become president, who is going to turn things around, has never materialized. And he finally realizes that no one else is going to do it, that it's going to have to be him. And now, of course, you know, we're much further down the line than this compilation of clips. And of course, we can see how he's progressed. And it doesn't show all his gaffes. It doesn't show his jokes. It doesn't show the many things that have been used against him to try to smear him. Like, for instance, just a couple days ago, he made a comment that he thought that he was being treated unfairly by the judge who was of Mexican-American heritage. And they said, see, that proves that he's a racist. Well, what he was trying to say was, and he said that he later said that what he said had been misconstrued, is that this Mexican-American judge was not working to help him, being fair to him, with the vigor that, you know, an impartial judge should, for reasons that have since become clear. And the guy really is an advocate for La Raza, and La Raza is basically a pro-Mexico group, very, very powerful, incredibly well financed. La Raza means the race in Spanish, and it promotes everything Hispanic. And so, in other words, it is not an impartial group. And therefore, this judge, who is Mexican-American, he's saying is not impartial, but has his own agenda, which he felt he should say something about. This does not make Trump a racist. Now, I think that the young people in America and people in general are beginning to back off labeling people as racist. For several months, it was like everybody was racist who didn't follow the politically correct line. And like, I remember somebody, he was a late night talk show from The Tonight Show, the guy with the big chin, I can't think of his name. Jay Leno said, he told the story, and something like similar to this happened to me actually too. He said he was with his nephew, and his nephew said, where are we going to go eat dinner? Hey, there's a good Mexican place down the street. So Jay Leno says, I don't really like Mexican. And his nephew says, wow, that's pretty racist. And Jay Leno goes, what? That doesn't mean I'm racist. But this is the mindset. And this is the propaganda. This is what feeds in people's minds. And they just, a lot of people, they just follow along with whatever the trend is, and it's very subtle. It's very subtle, but it's very powerful. The more subtle it is, the more powerful it is, because you're not consciously aware. You're being brainwashed, essentially, to think that anyone who says anything that seems to tend in that direction, like I don't like Mexican food, that makes them a racist. Well, they completely do not understand the mindset of the true racist at all. This is not the way true racists think. And so they have to get off this kick, and I think they are. They're beginning to realize how ridiculous this is, to be labeling people left and right. It's like people used to be labeled as communists. It's very convenient to label people. You just slap a label on them and they're done. You're done with them. You could shuffle them off into a corner and forget about them. And all through my life, people have used labels. Whether it's a communist, whether it's a libertarian, whether it's a Republican, whether it's a Democrat. Republicans label Democrats, Democrats label Republicans. If you were a hippie, that was a good label. I remember that. Yeah, he's a hippie. You know, he's a freak. They're freaks. The dirty hippie, filthy hippie. Just another label. Conspiracy theorist. That was created by the FBI when people started to question the events on Dealey Plaza in 1963 with the assassination of John Fitzgerald Kennedy. And that was just another label. You could not take them seriously. And they do that now. They still use the term conspiracy theorist. As you and I all know, conspiracies never happen, have never happened in history, and never will happen. So therefore, since conspiracies never, ever, ever happen, the idea that someone might have a theory about it, that maybe there's a conspiracy, they must be crazy and they must be kooks. People have all kinds of conspiracy theories about the Clintons, for instance. And it doesn't matter that these are incredibly well researched and there's anomalies with the behavior and vast amounts of evidence to prove that the Clinton Foundation is a criminal organization, and that Hillary Clinton is very much behind it, very much behind everything she does. There's a reason why Hillary Clinton used a server that was on her emails that she could erase, because she's constantly making illegal deals with leaders of foreign governments, with corporations, with Wall Street, and the money is flowing in, my friends, by the hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars into the Clinton Foundation, into the pockets of the Clinton political machine. I mean, she is giving her orders, secretly, even as Secretary of State. She was giving her orders, she was getting her information, and it was all deleted. And this is patently against the law. Every time she deleted an email that she made as president, as Secretary of the State, that is a felony. And we're talking tens of thousands of emails. And now she has clinched the Democratic nomination. And they showed her with her arms outspread, wearing white, in a glowing nimbus of golden light. On the night, just the other night, a couple nights ago, and they deliberately put that on her to make her appear in our minds as the coming of the second coming of Christ, or a goddess out of mythology, Greek mythology, white. You could do a lot when you're wearing white. A pure white. How often does Hillary Clinton wear white? But on that occasion, she wore white because she knew And this is a subconscious appeal to the religious nature of human beings, and this is something that leadership has tried to do throughout history, is you flush the old gods and you bring in the new gods, and the name of the new god, the goddess, is Hillary Clinton. You know, and that's what they want in people's minds. So she spread her arms as a female savior in glowing white with a yellow nimbus around her, just like a halo in a religious painting. And now we have her, and we'll see what Donald Trump, who's the only man left standing, we'll see what he does. So watch this compilation, very interesting. I apologize for the problems with the audio, with the lip syncing, because there's a problem about halfway through. There's a glitch. But it's not too bad. And otherwise, the sound is very clear. You'll be able to hear every word, no problem. So enjoy, and I'll be back to talk about it.
Would you like to be the President of the United States?
I really don't believe I would run it, but I would like to see somebody as the President who could do the job, and there are very capable people in this country.
Why wouldn't you dedicate yourself to public service?
Because I think it's a very mean life. I would love, and I would dedicate my life to this country, but I see it as being a mean life, and I also see it as somebody with strong views, and somebody with the kind of views that are maybe a little bit unpopular, which may be right, but may be unpopular, wouldn't necessarily have a chance of getting elected against somebody with no great brain but a big smile.
But you might be classified as an Eastern Republican. Fair?
Well, I guess you could say that, yes.
Which means kind of a Rockefeller, Chase Manhattan Republican?
I never thought of it in those terms.
How do you define it? Are you a Bush Republican?
No, I think I'm really, the people that I do best with are the people that drive the taxis. You know, wealthy people don't like me because I'm competing against them all the time, and they don't like me, and I like to win. The fact is, I go down the streets of New York, and the people that really like me are the taxi drivers and the workers, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I really get a great response.
Why are you a Republican?
I have no idea. I mean, I'm a Republican because I just believe in certain principles of the Republican Party.
You have flirted with the idea of politics. Now you're here at your first national convention. Does that get you interested in possibly making the plunge?
Now you have to tell me something. Who told you I flirted?
Well,
I didn't know that I flirted with.
Well, you took out full-page ads in the New York Times to talk about your foreign policy. Some people would say...
I do feel very strongly about the country. I love the country.
You've become a role model in this country. The reason that your book sells, the reason that your board game sells, is because people are looking to leaders. People are looking for values, and you're one of the people. And it's you may dismiss it, but people are talking about, you know, Donald Trump for president. What they're really talking about is Donald Trump, show us the way. Well, be the true white hat.
I'm, again, somebody that has a good instinct financially. I have had historically. I've followed markets. I've been going in the right direction, whether it's New York real estate or stocks or whatever. I know from a common sense financial standpoint that something has to burst. When a country is losing billions and billions and billions of dollars a year, and when other countries are making hundreds of billions of dollars, something is going to burst, and it's going to start here. I know it. It's a question of when. To me, it's not a question if, it's a question of when. And unless we're going to solve our problem, and the problem is caused by our allies, unless we're going to solve that problem, this country is in very, very big trouble. And I'm not talking recession kind of trouble. I'm talking depression kind of trouble.
Would you really like to take over and run the country as you have run your organization?
I would much prefer that somebody else do it. I just don't know if the somebody else is there. I don't know if we have the kind of advocate that you need. We need major surgery. This country needs major surgery.
Are you the surgeon?
I think I do a fantastic job, but I really would prefer not doing it.
Uh-huh. Are you saying you will take it only if drafted?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that I hope that somebody comes along who can be an advocate, and I think that somebody will be so popular,
But you haven't seen
he or she will be the most, but I don't see it now. I wish that person were there. But again, I do know one thing. It's not a question. This country is losing hundreds of billions. It's not a question if, it's a question when.
I have never understood how this is possible. I have never understood how somebody throughout this country didn't sue the United States government and have that overturned. I mean, you had people, investors, investing over a 10-year period for under a set of conditions. And this is, as I was talking before, playing the game. We're all playing by a certain set of rules. The rules were changed for the government, but they weren't changed for us. I mean, it was an incredible circumstance that happened. And people went bust by the hundreds of thousands, and I hope you weren't one of them in terms of that, but obviously you know a lot of people that were. They changed the rules on taxes, and you have some incredible situations where people guaranteed personally a stream of payments to be paid over a 10-year period based on a stream of tax benefits for perhaps a very good job, like a low-income housing development. Nothing wrong with that, a very positive thing. And after 2 years, they got wiped out with the taxes, and yet they still owed all of this money. And many of these people, most of these people, had to declare bankruptcy. They couldn't pay it.
I deal with foreigners all the time. I deal with foreign leaders all the time. I know many of the foreign leaders probably better than a lot of the so-called candidates that are running on the Republican and Democratic tickets. I think I'd get along very well with them. And I think you'd have a lot less gridlock in Washington if I decide to do this and if I won. You know, nobody talks about the soldiers that are coming back with no arms and no legs. And I saw at Mar-a-Lago on Mondays, I make Mar-a-Lago my club that you know about.
In Palm Beach.
I make that twice now. On a Monday, I let returning Iraqi injured soldiers come to the premises. The most beautiful people I've ever seen. But they're missing arms and legs. They're with their wives. Sometimes they're with their girlfriends. And the tears are coming down the faces of these people. Well, I just hate what's happened to this country. We've gone to a country that's no longer respected. We're in a war that we should have never, and by the way, I'm worse than any hawk there is in terms of military and in terms of defending ourselves. But Saddam Hussein didn't knock down the World Trade Center. He had nothing to do with it. And there were no weapons of mass destruction.
The other day, the head of 3M said that President Obama is anti-business. Do you get the same feeling that he does?
Well, I don't know that it's anti-business or he just really doesn't know exactly what to do. And I'm afraid it probably is the second thing. I don't see him necessarily as anti-business. I think that he is not sophisticated in the ways of business. He hasn't dealt with the people that you've dealt with and that I've dealt with. I deal with China, as an example, a lot. It is never easy. And I've made some very big deals with the Chinese. I've come out on top. I've come out in great shape. I sell apartments to Chinese people. I get along great with them. It's not like, you know, anti-China. I just think it's ridiculous that we allow them to do what they're doing to this country with the manipulation of the currency that you write about and understand, and all of the other things that they do. And frankly, if I were them and if I could get away with it, I take my hat off to them, frankly. They do get away with it. And I hire companies all the time, and it's so hard for our companies to compete against Chinese companies. I mean, these companies have such an advantage, whether it's glass for a curtain wall or whether it's, and you use the term because you know what's happened, sheetrock. I mean, they used to give us sheetrock, just give it. And everybody that was unfortunate enough to use Chinese sheetrock had problems. I mean, problems like where people were dying from it. The good news, Steve, our product is much better, but with the manipulation of their currency, it's very, very, very hard for our companies to compete. But I'll certainly do whatever is necessary and however I can help, whether they want me to make speeches, whether they want me to contribute, raise money, I'll do whatever I have to do. We need somebody great as a president.
I know that you were mentioning that Aaron and I did a kind of an interesting video not that long ago in August about how things have fallen apart. But at that point, the only people who were saying it were us and you.
I was saying it. I was saying it a long time ago. And frankly, they're talking about 50 basis points. I think you should drop it a point, a full, solid 100 basis points, and just sit back and see. And I was actually looking at somebody, a gentleman from Goldman Sachs was saying 175. So that's going to be interesting. But I think that's ultimately going to be happy. And it would be nice if Ben could get now ahead of the curve instead of always being behind the curve. He's behind the curve. Say what you want about Alan Greenspan. He was always slightly ahead of the curve. And that was always brilliant. And he had this incredible reputation. I think Ben has to get a little bit ahead of the curve. He has to do something dramatic. And I really think what he should do is surprise the hell out of everyone and do it 100, and let's see what happens.
That would be big. Any politician, do you think, has the pulse? Anyone running for president has the pulse of what you know about the economy?
Well, the biggest problem is something I never hear about. I told you about it once. Every time they lower interest rates, the cartel, because I call it a cartel, the illegal monopoly, raises oil prices, okay? So the monopoly, because that's all it is, it's a total illegal monopoly. If businesses ever formed OPEC, everybody would be put in jail. Here they are, and every time a country hits oil, they're invited in to the cartel, okay? It's a disgrace. So what happens is every time interest rates go down, oil prices go up, and it's the same number. I mean, practically the same money. So they lower it, they raise it, they lower it, they raise it. Now you have oil that's close to 100, going to be over 100, and nobody in this country calls and says, get that damn oil price down. You get it down. But I have to tell you that our country is in serious, serious trouble. We owe $17 trillion our debt. How do you pay off $17 trillion? Nobody ever heard the expression a number of years ago. The word trillion. We have debt that's beyond belief. We have deficits that nobody can even comprehend. China, which I've been talking about for the last 5 years, yesterday, right in our face, they just devalued their currency. Now, for those that don't understand devaluation, what they're basically doing is saying, we're really ripping you big league. Nobody's ever done it better than us. But now we're going to really do it again. And the reason they did it, and everybody was surprised by it, was because our leadership is so weak and so pathetic that they can get away with it. And believe me, they're taking our jobs, and they're taking them big league. And China's not the only one. You look at other countries, they're all doing the same thing. They have no respect for our leader. And frankly, they have no respect any longer for our great country. And it's so simple to solve. What we need is a strong economy. What we need is jobs. Now, you hear these phony job numbers, 6.7%. The 6.7% is probably 21 or 22% real numbers. When you give up looking for a job, it's like they consider you employed. It's amazing. They changed this. You know, in the old days, if you had people that couldn't find work, they couldn't find work. Today, such a huge number. Now you look at what's going on with Afghanistan. You have Karzai that's treating our president like he doesn't even exist. So they make a deal. And I'm not advocating stay, because frankly, I want to build this country. I want to build these schools. I don't want to build a school in Afghanistan, a road going to the school, watch it get built up and then blown up 4 times, and they keep rebuilding and rebuilding, and you go to Brooklyn, New York, and you can't have schools. You go to Iowa, you can't. You go to wherever you go, and you can't have schools. Because we don't have any money, because we're spending it in other places where, frankly, they don't want us, and I don't want them. And it's amazing. Our country is in serious trouble. We don't have victories anymore. We used to have victories, but we don't have them. When was the last time anybody saw us beating, let's say, China in a trade deal? They kill us. I beat China all the time. All the time.
When did we beat Japan at anything? They send their cars over by the millions. And what do? When was the last time you saw a Chevrolet in Tokyo? It doesn't exist, folks. They beat us all the time. When do we beat Mexico at the border? They're laughing at us, at our stupidity. And now they're beating us economically. They are not our friend, believe me. But they're killing us economically. The U.S. has become a dumping ground for everybody else's problems. Thank you. It's true. Islamic terrorism is eating up large portions of the Middle East. They become rich. I'm in competition with them. They just built a hotel in Syria. Can you believe this? They built a hotel. When I have to build a hotel, I pay interest. They don't have to pay interest because they took the oil that when we left Iraq, I said we should have taken. So now ISIS has the oil. And what they don't have, Iran has. And in and I will tell you this, and I said it very strongly, years ago, I said, and I love the military, and I want to have the strongest military that we've ever had, and we need it more now than ever, but I said, don't hit Iraq, because you're going to totally destabilize the Middle East. Iran is going to take over the Middle East. Iran and somebody else will get the oil, and it turned out that Iran is now taking over Iraq. Think of it. Iran is taking over Iraq, and they're taking it over big league. We spent $2 trillion in Iraq. $2 trillion. We lost thousands of lives, thousands in Iraq. We have wounded soldiers who I love. I love. They're great. All over the place. Thousands and thousands of wounded soldiers. And we have nothing. We can't even go there. We have nothing. And every time we give Iraq equipment, the first time a bullet goes off in the air, they leave it. Last week I read 2,300 Humvees. These are big vehicles were left behind for the enemy. 2,000, you would say maybe 2, maybe 4? 2,300 sophisticated vehicles they ran, and the enemy took them. You're right. Last quarter, it was just announced, our gross domestic product, a sign of strength, right? But not for us. It was below zero. Who ever heard of this? It's never below zero. Our labor participation rate was the worst since 1978. But think of it, GDP below zero. Horrible labor participation rate. And our real unemployment is anywhere from 18 to 20%. Don't believe the 5.6. Don't believe it. That's right, a lot of people up there can't get jobs. They can't get jobs because there are no jobs. Because China has our jobs, and Mexico has our jobs. They all have our jobs. But the real number is anywhere from 18 to 19 and maybe even 21%. And nobody talks about it because it's a statistic that's full of nonsense. Our enemies are getting stronger and stronger by the day, and we as a country are getting weaker. Even our nuclear arsenal doesn't work. It came out recently. They have equipment that's 30 years old. They don't even know if it worked. And I thought it was horrible when it was broadcast on television, because boy, does that send signals to Putin and all of the other people that look at us and they say, that is a group of people, and that is a nation that truly has no clue. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing. We have a disaster called the big lie, Obamacare. Obamacare. Yesterday it came out that costs are going for people up 29, 39, 49, and even 55%. And deductibles are through the roof. You have to get hit by a tractor, literally a tractor, to use it, because the deductibles are so high, it's virtually useless. It is a disaster. And remember the $5 billion website. $5 billion we spent on a website. And to this day, it doesn't work. A $5 billion website. I have so many websites. I have them all over the place. I hire people. They do a website. It costs me $3. $5 billion website. I have so many websites. I have them all over the place. I hire people. They do a website. It costs me $3. $5 billion website. Well, you need somebody, because politicians are all talk, no action. Nothing's going to get done. They will not bring us, believe me, to the promised land. They will not. As an example, I've been on the circuit making speeches, and I hear my fellow Republicans, and they're wonderful people. I like them. They all want me to support them. They don't know how to bring it about. They come up to my office. I'm meeting with 3 of them in the next week, and they don't know. Are you running? Are you not running? Could we have your support? What do we do? How do we do it? I like them. And I hear their speeches. And they don't talk jobs, and they don't talk China. When was the last time you heard China's killing us? They're devaluing their currency to a level that you wouldn't believe. It makes it impossible for our companies to compete. Impossible. They're killing us. But you don't hear that from anybody else. You don't hear it from anybody else. And I watch the speeches. Thank you. I watch the speeches of these people, and they say, the sun will rise, the moon will set, all sorts of wonderful things will happen. And people are saying, what's going on? I just want a job. Just get me a job. I don't need the rhetoric. I want a job. And that's what's happening. And it's going to get worse, because remember, Obamacare really kicks in 2016. Really big league. It is going to be amazingly destructive. Doctors are quitting. I have a friend who's a doctor, and he said to me the other day, Donald, I never saw anything like it. I have more accountants than I have nurses. It's a disaster. My patients are beside themselves. They had a plan that was good. They have no plan now. We have to repeal Obamacare, and it can be replaced. And it can be replaced with something much better for everybody. Let it be for everybody, but much better and much less expensive for people and for the government. And we can do it. So, I've watched the politicians. I've dealt with them all my life. If you can't make a good deal with a politician, then there's something wrong with you. You're certainly not very good. And that's what we have representing us. They will never make America great again. They don't even have a chance. They're controlled fully. They're controlled fully by the lobbyists, by the donors, and by the special interests, fully. They control them. Hey, I have lobbyists, I have to tell you. I have lobbyists that can produce anything for me. They're great. But you know what? It won't happen. It won't happen because we have to stop doing things for some people, but for this country, it's destroying our country. We have to stop, and it has to stop now. Now, our country needs a truly great leader, and we need a truly great leader now. We need a leader that wrote The Art of the Deal. We need a leader that can bring back our jobs, can bring back our manufacturing, can bring back our military, can take care of our vets. Our vets have been abandoned. And we also need a cheerleader. You know, when President Obama was elected, I said, well, the one thing I think he'll do well, I think he'll be a great cheerleader for the country. I think he'd be a great spirit. He was vibrant. He was young. I really thought that he would be a great cheerleader. He's not a leader, that's true. You're right about that. But he wasn't a cheerleader. He's actually a negative force. He's been a negative force. He wasn't a cheerleader. He was the opposite. We need somebody that can take the brand of the United States and make it great again. It's not great again. We need somebody. We need somebody that literally will take this country and make it great again. We can do that. And I will tell you, I love my life. I have a wonderful family. They're saying, Dad, you're going to do something that's going to be so tough. You know, all of my life I've heard that a truly successful person, a really, really successful person, and even modestly successful, cannot run for public office. Just can't happen. And yet that's the kind of mindset that you need to make this country great again. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am officially running for President of the United States, and we are going to make our country great again.
Okay, so we are back after that very interesting compilation of clips and part of the speech that essentially introduced Donald Trump to the American public as the candidate for the Republican nomination for the presidency. And you can see that he does have a lot of knowledge. People say he doesn't know anything, that he's uninformed, that he gets the facts wrong. But if you listen to what he has to say, he really does seem to have a pretty good grasp. And of course, he doesn't get into the nitty-gritty, but you feel a sense of that he has a sense of familiarity with the subject matter that he's broaching. And so this is going to be, if he were to become president, you have the sense that this is going to be a different approach. He is very adamant in saying that he wants to do this for America because he likes America. You don't get that sense from Hillary Clinton. You get the sense that she is saying what she feels is necessary to be said in order to get the presidency. And it's almost like Donald Trump is doing the opposite almost on purpose. He doesn't want people to like him or love him because of who he pretends to be, but he wants to be accepted for who he is. And that would be with all his peccadillos, his warts, and his flaws. And so therefore he's trying to present himself as who he is. And he has certainly succeeded in that. And his handlers and the Republican establishment are tearing their hair out trying to get him to change, to pull back on saying what he thinks in so many issues, and making the jokes, and being just generally not politically correct. And he says, no, I'm not going to do that. And he says, the reason I'm not going to do it because being me, just allowing people to see who I am as a human being, seems to be working. And I'm not going to stop doing that. Too long the American people have been presented with the image. It's a cardboard cutout, essentially, of the real person. We never got to see who the real Barack Obama was. Not even to this day do we know who the real Barack Obama is. He has only shown himself in little tiny pieces that if you look at all the footage about him, you can get a little bit of an idea of the rather unsavory character that he actually is. The guy who makes his little winks and his little nods to his buddies and plays the little tricks on the audience that they don't get unless you are clued in to what he's actually doing. Like for instance, in his speeches, Barack Obama's speeches, he has on numerous occasions pointed out someone in the audience who appears to be ready to faint. And he says, oh my gosh, this person looks ready to faint. Someone help that poor woman, or someone help that poor man. And so we had no idea whether or not that was real or not. And you might think, oh, this guy is amazing. He noticed someone in the audience who was having some difficulties with the heat, with the press of the crowd, and he is big enough of a guy to actually order them some assistance, to call in someone to assist that poor person. And that's amazing. That is so special. But there was one time, and you can see this on YouTube, when he had some people standing behind him, as he often does, supporters, and there was a pregnant woman in a red dress, I believe, standing almost behind him. And next to her was a woman, another woman, and he's speaking, giving his speech, and very clearly you can see. Now, what you have to do, this is the way a magician works. You watch him, all your focus is on him, but you have to be clued in to what is going on with the woman, with the two women, the woman next to the pregnant woman and the pregnant woman. Because what happens is, at some point in the speech, the woman next to the pregnant woman looks and sees something, makes a very tiny nod, like this. She nods. You could barely, but if you could barely see it, but if you look directly at her, you could see it. She sees someone, she gets a signal, she nods. Then she nudges the pregnant woman. The pregnant woman looks at her, you can see her eyes go over, like this, and then she goes, and she starts to go like this, like she's about ready to faint. Wavering, whoa, like this. Then you see President Obama, you see him pick up, obviously, a signal, and he turns around and he says, this poor woman is about to faint. Someone help her. And then the solicitous people help her off the stage. And he says, wow, yeah, I know, it's tough, it gets hot up here, and the poor woman. And people go, wow, how did he know that she was about ready to faint when she was behind him. Well, my friends, it's because the whole thing was rigged, and it's called acting. And so probably all those other ones were probably rigged as well. And that is the show that's being performed for the American people. The false reality that's being created. And it takes people with open minds and open eyes to see through the shenanigans, through the charade, through the narrative that's being created of the compassionate leader who has eyes behind his head, who can see behind him, almost godlike powers, to see someone who's about ready to faint directly behind him, almost directly behind him. And this is the way it has been. This is the game that leaders throughout history have played with their subjects. And this is why, for thousands of years, leaders have claimed divinity. Yes, divine right of kings. Never heard of it? Look it up. Yes, the kings used to claim that they were either descended from gods or were gods, or at least had a close relationship with God, that they were somehow divine. They were, and you can look through, in Egypt they did this. In the Sumerians they did this. Babylonian people did this. Now we're seeing it again, only 2 nights ago, when Hillary Clinton made her historic announcement that she is now the Democratic nominee for the president. The first woman in American history to achieve the nomination for the president of the United States. Arms outstretched, special golden light on her, wearing white, very simple white outfit, like she was the high priestess of a cult, a religious cult. And my friends, this is exactly what Hillary Clinton and her advisors want people to feel about Hillary Clinton. And when the exact opposite is true, when the criminal behavior of the Clinton machine, which has been operating since the 1980s in Arkansas, when they get that power, when she gets the ultimate power, we are going to see some amazing things happen in this country. Like the old saying is about Hillary Clinton, she never saw a war she didn't like. And so there's going to be war, there's going to be if she becomes president, there's going to be reckless war and death rain down upon people around the world. And I would not be surprised if that death did not rain down upon Americans themselves in their own country. We'll see. Because she has been involved in bringing death to many people. Now you can listen to Larry Nichols about this, who claimed to be, and he's still alive, he may not be alive much longer, he has cancer, but he was a close associate of the Clintons back in Arkansas. Now Arkansas is like a country unto itself, like a third world country. And the criminal element has run Arkansas for a very, very long time. And so there is a culture of death, and it's almost to the point in Arkansas, I don't know if it's still that way, I wouldn't be surprised, where you have, like in a third world country, death squads running around killing political enemies. So many people in Arkansas have died for committed suicide, strange car wrecks, planes blowing up, and planes almost never blow up. But when you're in the political world, your small plane seems to often blow up. Just blow up. And these are political enemies or people who worked for the Clintons, got sick, like Vince Foster, got sick of it, decided to go public, and then committed suicide just before. And of course, this is not the only, they're not the only people who do this. This has happened over and over and over in American history. Lyndon Baines Johnson, another politician, very ambitious, had his own hitman. And Larry Nichols claims to be a hitman, maybe not the only hitman, but a hitman for the Clintons. And he's admitted this. He said, I killed people in Europe. I killed people in America. I did it for the money. I didn't give a SHIT. And now he's an old man. He regrets it and believes that the Clintons have to be stopped if it's at all possible. And has come openly. Now, what's amazing about this is that here is a man who is a murderer, an assassin, and admitted publicly that he is. It's all, you can go to the internet and look at Larry Nichols and hear him talk about that he was an assassin for the. And do you think that anyone in the Justice Department, the FBI, who would have jurisdiction over murder, or the state of Arkansas, do you think anybody has come to investigate him or to arrest him? No. They will not touch him. Why? Because the Clintons themselves are untouchable. And if he were to be arrested, even though he's admitted to be an assassin for the Clintons, no one has arrested him. No one seems to have thought about this. How does a guy admit this and then not be touched? Only if his employers are also untouchable. So he therefore also will not be indicted, because that indictment would have to extend to his employers too. And so, is this what we have to look forward to? By all accounts, Hillary Clinton is extremely vindictive. She holds grudges. She's like Nixon. She has an enemies list, and she likes to get payback for everyone who opposed her, has a terrible temper. And is this the person we want for president? What we want is someone who will lower the body count of the U.S. government, not raise the body count. So we'll see how it all shakes out. That's all for today. Have a great weekend and sleep well.